Are you tired of seeing your kindness taken for weakness? In this video, we'll reveal Machiavelli's hidden truth about the real cost of goodness and how to stay virtuous without becoming a victim. Imagine standing in a crowded hall where every face is turned toward you, their eyes warm with gratitude for the favors you have granted them. Your heart swells with the quiet pride of having done what is right, of having been merciful when others would have been harsh. But as you scan the room more carefully, you notice something else hiding beneath the smiles: calculation, expectation, hunger. This is the first paradox of goodness. It attracts not only affection, but also ambition. When a man becomes known for his generosity, others see him not merely as a friend, but as an open purse, a resource to be mined, a shield to hide behind. They whisper among themselves, "He is soft. He will forgive. He will give again." In politics, in business, even in the intimacy of friendship, the same law applies. The moment your character is stamped as good above all things, you invite a subtle form of predation. There are those who will exploit your kindness, not out of malice alone, but because human nature cannot resist an easy advantage. They will test how far they can lean upon your patience, how much of your strength they may borrow before you finally draw a line. And if you delay in drawing it, they will assume there is no boundary at all. Machiavelli observed this truth in princes and courtiers, yet it is no less vivid in the quiet lives of ordinary men and women. Consider the colleague who is always asked to take on one more task because he never refuses. Or the friend who listens endlessly to the troubles of others, yet finds no one available when his own burdens grow heavy. Their goodness becomes a chain around their neck, forged not by their enemies, but by their own reluctance to defend the limits of their benevolence. To understand the double edge of goodness, one must see how it shapes reputation. A reputation for fairness and kindness can indeed win allies, smooth conflicts, and create opportunities. Left untempered, it hardens into an expectation, an unspoken contract that you will always choose sacrifice over self-interest. People begin to regard your help as a right rather than a gift. They come not with gratitude, but with entitlement, and when you finally deny them, they turn cold or resentful, as if you had betrayed an oath you never swore. There is also a subtler cost that nests inside the soul. When you define yourself entirely by the need to be good, you become vulnerable to the tyranny of approval. You weigh every choice not by its wisdom, but by how others will judge your compassion. Fear of seeming harsh clouds your judgment, and you hesitate in moments that call for firmness. What began as a noble impulse to act justly transforms into a cage of your own making, where every decision must be polished until it offends no one. History is full of figures undone by this delicate trap, rulers who spared their enemies until those enemies sharpened the blade against them. Merchants who lent too freely and lost their fortunes. Lovers who gave and gave until their affection became invisible, taken for granted rather than cherished. In each case, the ruin did not come because they lacked moral worth, but because they forgot that even virtue must live within boundaries. Goodness, then, is not a simple light shining in darkness. It is a fire. It can warm, illuminate, and draw others close, but if left unattended, it consumes the very one who tends it. To wield it well demands a certain clarity, to see who truly deserves your favor, to know when to give and when to withhold, to recognize that compassion without discretion is not virtue, but weakness dressed in noble clothing. As you listen, consider the moments in your own life when kindness has cost you more than you expected. The times when helping one person meant draining the strength you needed for another duty, or when forgiving someone invited them to wound you again. These are not accidents. They are the natural price of walking through the world with an open hand. Step closer and picture a great ledger, its pages yellowed by time, resting on the desk of every ruler, every merchant, every seeker of influence. On one side of that ledger is written the language of virtue, loyalty, generosity, kindness, fairness. On the other side lies a different language entirely: leverage, strategy, control, the quiet arithmetic of power. The trouble begins when a man believes that the first language alone will keep him safe. He spends kindness like a king scattering coins in a marketplace, certain that goodness will build an army of gratitude around him. Yet gratitude, though sweet, is often lighter than air, while the weight of power is as solid as stone. Machiavelli understood this with unnerving clarity. He watched how princes who ruled only by virtue quickly found themselves at the mercy of those who were willing to mix virtue with calculation. A man who clings only to moral purity may win admiration for a season, but he risks surrendering the very tools that secure his place in the world. Those who rise highest do not despise virtue. They simply understand that it must be wielded with precision, like a sword rather than a garland. Think of the benevolent employer who raises every salary out of a sincere wish to be loved by his staff. At first, he is adored, his generosity praised in whispers. But soon, the gesture becomes expected, even demanded. When a year arrives in which he cannot afford the same largesse, affection turns sour, and respect slips through his fingers. His virtue has been spent like currency without regard for its value, leaving him vulnerable to resentment rather than loyalty. Or consider the leader who seeks to be just perfectly merciful, never favoring one side over another. In his quest to be universally loved, he hesitates in moments of conflict, offering concessions to all. Those with sharper instincts notice the hesitation and seize ground while he wrestles with conscience. They smile at his fairness even as they carve away his strength. Virtue, when divorced from strategy, becomes a feast set upon an open table where others dine freely while the host grows lean. The truth is that human beings measure worth not only in goodness but in authority. They respect those who combine a sense of justice with the ability to command. A man who is capable of kindness yet refuses to be ruled by it inspires a steadier devotion than one who gives without pause. The latter is admired for his heart, but the former is followed for his steadiness. Even among friends, even in families, the same dynamic plays out. Affection is warm, but respect is the anchor that keeps relationships from drifting into imbalance. To navigate this tension, one must understand that virtue and power are not enemies but partners in a dance. Power without virtue hardens into tyranny, feared but never truly honored. Virtue without power withers into fragility, beloved but easily discarded when storms arise. The wise person allows generosity to serve a purpose, to reinforce stability, to cultivate allies whose loyalty is earned rather than begged. He does not deny his impulse to be good, but he gives it a framework, a boundary, a reason that aligns with the preservation of his position and the fulfillment of his duties. There is also a personal cost to neglecting this balance. A life built on unexamined virtue often collapses under the strain of exploitation. Each demand met without question erodes confidence, until a man no longer feels ownership of his own time or resources. He becomes a servant to the expectations he created, trapped by the very image of goodness he wished to uphold. By contrast, the one who integrates strategy with decency protects not only his standing but also the dignity of his intentions. His kindness does not beg for applause, nor does it crumble when challenged. It stands firm, because it is supported by strength. Look carefully at those who have endured in history, not merely the conquerors, but the guardians of communities, the builders of families, the leaders who weathered betrayal and prosperity alike. Their secret was never to cast aside virtue, but to recognize its cost and its limits. They treated every favor as an investment, every act of fairness as a deliberate choice, weighed against their larger purpose. Their goodness was not an accident, it was a disciplined craft, as deliberate as the forging of iron or the cutting of stone. As you reflect, ask yourself, how often you have confused being liked with being respected, how often you have paid for admiration with coins drawn from the treasury of your own strength. Imagine a ruler sitting alone in the quiet of dawn, a sealed letter resting on the table before him. It carries the name of a man who has betrayed him, yet the messenger also brings word of that man's family, hungry and destitute. The ruler studies the letter and feels the pull of two forces, the impulse to forgive and the instinct to protect his throne. This is the very space where mercy becomes art, not a blind reflex, but a deliberate choice measured against the weight of consequence. Machiavelli would remind us that mercy, untethered from reason, is not virtue but indulgence dressed in noble clothes. To spare everyone, to forgive every slight, is to teach the world that betrayal carries no cost. Those who govern nations, companies, or even households know that forgiveness can steady the heart of a friend. But if given too freely, it loosens the threads of discipline. Strategic mercy is born when compassion walks hand in hand with foresight, when the heart's warmth is tempered by the mind's coolness. Consider a leader who faces an employee who has made a costly error. The simple urge to scold or to dismiss might satisfy pride, yet it could also waste a worker's potential and foster bitterness among others. But to forgive without consequence would teach that negligence is safe. The wise path lies between acknowledge the wrong, offer guidance, and set clear boundaries for the future. Here, mercy is not weakness. It is a calculated act aimed at growth, loyalty, and order. History tells similar stories. A prince who pardons a rival may turn him into an ally, strengthening the state. But if that pardon is granted without assessing the rival's ambition, the same generosity may plant seeds of rebellion. Caesar forgave too many enemies, and daggers answered him in the Senate. By contrast, rulers who examined the character of those they forgave often transformed potential traitors into devoted servants. They knew that clemency, when measured, could be the sharpest instrument of control. Strategic mercy is not limited to the grand halls of power. It belongs equally to the intimate spaces of daily life. A parent who never disciplines a child risks raising entitlement instead of gratitude. A friend who continually excuses disrespect will find that friendship turning brittle, stripped of mutual regard. Yet when patience is paired with limits, when kindness is given with a steady hand, it forges bonds built on respect rather than dependency. At its heart, this form of mercy demands clarity of purpose. Before forgiving or granting favor, one must ask, will this act create stability or chaos? Will it foster loyalty or invite further harm? Mercy offered with no thought of outcome is charity. Mercy offered with an eye to its ripple effects is strategy. The latter preserves both the giver and the receiver, allowing generosity to nourish rather than to consume. Even within oneself, the principle applies. Many are quick to punish their own failures mercilessly, or conversely, to excuse every lapse until discipline evaporates. Strategic mercy toward the self means neither harshness nor indulgence, but the balance of forgiveness with accountability. It is the inner ruler setting laws for the kingdom of the soul, rewarding effort, correcting error, and never letting despair or arrogance claim the throne. Think about the moments when you have shown leniency and regretted it, and the moments when you were firm and earned lasting respect. Both experiences whisper the same lesson: mercy is strongest when it is selective, when it serves a purpose beyond soothing guilt or easing discomfort. It is not the absence of strength, but the deliberate choice to apply strength gently, to heal without forfeiting authority, to inspire without surrendering vigilance. Picture a man walking through a crowded square, his hands full of gifts he has given freely to those around him. At first, the crowd smiles, grateful for his generosity, but as he moves forward, more hands reach out. Each expects something: a favor, protection, time, or another offering. Slowly, the man begins to stagger beneath the weight of his own kindness. This is the hidden toll of goodness, quiet cost that clings to every act of virtue when it is not counted carefully. Machiavelli, sharp-eyed and unsentimental, warned that every decision carries a price, even the most benevolent. To pardon someone is to stake a measure of your authority. To grant a request is to part with resources you may later need. To show leniency is to risk that your resolve will seem soft in the eyes of those watching. Many rush to display virtue without pausing to tally what it may demand in return, and so they are startled when the bill for their goodness arrives. Think of the leader who spends long hours mediating disputes, comforting every grievance, offering more support than his strength can supply. For a time, he is revered as a pillar of fairness, the one who always listens. Yet each hour he gives to soothe quarrels steals an hour from planning, from fortifying his own position, from tending to those who rely on his clarity rather than his sympathy. The cost is subtle at first, then profound, draining his authority until he is seen as a helper but no longer as a guide. Or imagine a merchant who lends money to friends out of loyalty. One by one, they come with stories of hardship, and he, unwilling to seem cold, empties his purse. But when lean times arrive, those same friends are nowhere to repay him. His fortune is gone, and with it, the respect they once offered so readily. What looked like an endless supply of goodwill has become a ledger of losses written in invisible ink. The toll is not only material. There is also a quiet erosion of spirit. Each favor granted without discernment chips at the edge of resolve, teaching the heart to place others' comfort above its own reason. Slowly, a person may forget how to say no, how to claim space for their own ambitions. They may become a mirror reflecting the desires of others, their own face dimming beneath the weight of constant accommodation. Goodness, when unguarded, can empty a life of its shape until little remains but fatigue dressed as devotion. This hidden price is often masked by praise. The world applauds generosity. It crowns the patient with compliments. But applause does not replenish strength, and admiration does not shield against the cunning of those who see kindness as an opening. Every time a ruler grants mercy, there are eyes watching, calculating what liberties they might now take. Every time a citizen bends over backward to please, someone quietly measures how far they can lean before resistance appears. The toll is paid not only in coin or energy, but in the slow chipping away of respect. Even relationships carry this secret arithmetic. A friend who always gives rides may find that gratitude fades while expectation grows. A sibling who constantly shoulders burdens may become invisible, except when another favor is needed. The warmth that once surrounded their generosity cools as others grow accustomed to taking. What began as an expression of love turns into a quiet obligation, one that leaves the giver wary and often silently resentful. To live without awareness of this cost is to drift toward exhaustion, to become a reservoir continually drained without a spring to refill it. The wise learn to count before they promise, to weigh the consequences before they extend their hand. They recognize that even a simple yes carries threads that may stretch far beyond the moment, binding them to duties that were never intended to last forever. Every act of goodness, from the smallest courtesy to the grandest sacrifice, leaves an imprint not just on those who receive it, but on the one who gives. It shapes reputation, alters the balance of obligations, and silently draws from the reserves of time, wealth, and strength. Step back now and look at the path we have walked together. We have seen how goodness, when left unguarded, can invite exploitation like a flame calling to moths. We have weighed the delicate balance between virtue and power, discovering that kindness must be partnered with strength if it is to endure. We have studied mercy as an art, a deliberate act that shapes loyalty rather than surrendering authority. And we have uncovered the hidden toll that generosity and leniency demand from those who give them too freely. Machiavelli's hidden truth is not a rejection of goodness, but an invitation to practice it with wisdom. True virtue is not the naive scattering of favors or the restless need to please. It is the steady hand that knows when to open and when to close, when to offer grace and when to protect what must not be lost. To be good and remain strong is a craft, a discipline, a way of moving through the world with both warmth and vigilance. So let your kindness be sharp with understanding, your mercy fortified by foresight, your generosity bounded by purpose. Then your goodness will not be a burden that weakens you, but a force that sustains you, a light that shines without burning out, a strength that commands respect even as it inspires trust.